Hello, everybody. This is the Steeltoe community meeting for September. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Everybody see that? Yeah. Okay. So here's our current. I'll actually paste the notes. Let me paste it into the room here. It's also on the website under community. But let me chat. So here's our meeting notes. Just to get started, obviously at the top of the meeting notes, just our Steeltoe links, like some of the common areas to look at, our website, our GitHub, Twitter feed, and our Slack, which is good to communicate with the team. And then our YouTube channel, which is relatively new, but we did have all the archived meetings are on located on our YouTube channel. So please take a look. And then, so some announcements. Obviously, the YouTube channel is available. There's more content planned on coming soon. Currently, it just mostly contains our community meetings, but we will be adding more content around how to use some of the components of Steeltoe and start building those that video library up. We just released Steeltoe 3.1.1 last month, I believe, or maybe right at the beginning of this month. And then we're looking at releasing Steeltoe 2.5.5 probably in the upcoming week. We have a couple more issues to just verify, and then we're going to go through and release that maintenance release. And some of the updates, I guess, are .NET Core 2.1 has reached EOL. We depend on we basically follow whatever the runtime's end of life scenario is. So our libraries at this point no longer support running on them. They probably will still work, but we will not be testing or supporting those libraries any further. And so we also added a Steeltoe wiki. It's up on our GitHub repo. If you take a look at there's a link there. Kind of describes the home. Right now, there's just two sections. One is the home, which kind of describes the whole project and how to contribute, and also has our supported versions and how what our end of life plan looks like for certain versions of Steeltoe. So you can start migrating off of the older versions and moving towards the newer ones that are supported for much longer. And another big announcement is Hacktoberfest. So Steeltoe will be joining Hacktoberfest this year. So basically what that means is we will identify or label our repo as a Hacktoberfest repo and create a bunch of issues, or not create, or at least tag it issues, or put labels on issues that are called Hacktoberfest. And then somebody who wants to join Hacktoberfest and contribute to open source projects can search and find any tickets that might be identified as a Hacktoberfest ticket and work on it and contribute and get some PRs going. And then I believe after you have 6 PRs, valid PRs, they could, like, not just changing capitalization or anything like that, they will actually give you send you a t-shirt from the Hacktoberfest, and I think maybe something else. Maybe you can donate a tree or something, someone said. So got a couple options there. And what else? So yep, just a quick going through the open issues. We've got our good first issues. Go ahead and check that link out. You can see some things that you can contribute to from the community. Usually they're easier, just to get started understanding how to work with Steeltoe and how to contribute. And then we also have our help one, and some of them a little bit more, probably a little bit more work, but still be great to have some more community contributions. And so quick update here, releases, yeah, upcoming. I already mentioned 2.5.5 planned for next week at this time. And we just had our 3.1.1, and here's the link to that. Let me go ahead and make it an actual link. And what else? And then, so we just had Spring 1 presentations. Hananiel did a presentation called "You Can Be Cloud Native Too" around Steeltoe and being cloud native. So take a look at that. There's a link there to the Spring 1. It's completely free. Just I think you have to register to see the video, but once you register, everything's available. We also did, there was a rapid development with Azure Spring Cloud. So Layla Porter is our developer advocate, and she joined Josh Long and Julian Dubois from Microsoft, and they went over the Azure Spring Cloud, and I think they worked a lot with Eureka on that one, like discovery. And then also Layla also did another talk around TDD and the Terminator. So go ahead and take a look at there and see if you have any interest in that. And then also our Tanzu TV episode last month. So Dave Tillman and Hananiel did a full talk on the new features of Steeltoe 3.1, which included our messaging and our streams, and a few other things that we've added in 3.1. So take a look at that. It was a really good episode. And what else we got here? Upcoming. So yeah, .NET Conf is coming up in November, and we also have VMworld in October. So I believe we'll have some submitted some sessions. Hopefully get some accepted, and it should be a good conference to go to. And community discussions. Again, we're just going to mention the Steeltoe book. There's a channel on the open source Slack called Steeltoe Book. If you're interested, go ahead and respond there. There's some people from Pact Publishing that are also watching that thread, that channel, excuse me, and would be interested in any help around the book. So, and that comes up to, I guess, really any questions from any of you guys or anything we want to discuss before we jump into a demonstration from Chris? Dave or Chris, anything?
Nope, not for me.
Nope, good.
All right. Well, then we will jump into this. This is the demo. It's Chris is going to be showing. Well, I guess I'll just let Chris jump in here.
Sure. I think we call it 3 ways. I think we're actually maybe look at 3+, 3.5, 4-ish sort of ways. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll just come up with the start with our.
Let me stop sharing.
Our initializer. So I think we might have shown the initializer in demonstrations past, and we're going to take a refresh look at it. One of the things that has changed in the last few months or so, we've rewritten the back end from a mustache-based generation of projects to a .NET Core tool, basically .NET templates. And so we'll take a look at the initializer, and then we'll take a look at the templates themselves, because there may be other opportunities in your development cycle to leverage the templates directly rather than having to go through the initializer. Let's take a look at initializer. So initializer way is to jumpstart project creation. We provide this ability to provide some metadata about your project, so what the name is, maybe a description. You can pick your .NET framework and your Steeltoe versions. Then we have a thing that we call dependencies. And let's take a look, before we add the dependencies, let's take a look at what a bare bones project might even just look like. This, if you were to look at the sample web API app that comes from Microsoft, this is basically it right here. This is the weather forecast application. If we look at the project file, there's a Steeltoe version here, but there's no Steeltoe packages. Other than that, it's pretty much vanilla, the web API app. So let's go ahead and add some behavior here. Let's try. Well, let's see. Let's add some management endpoints and see what happens. Look at our project file. We see that the project generation now has added a new package reference, and in the startup, it's added some extra code for us about around adding the actuators themselves. These are the management endpoints. And further on, these get mapped. So let's add something else. Let's add, this should be distributed. Let's add a Docker file. And now explore this. You see now we have a Docker file that's been added to into our project. We'll take a peek at that. This is something that you can run locally or deploy to a some target area for yourself. But this is all sort of generated by the initializer, as it were. But really what's happening under the covers is that there's a .NET templating engine that's generating all this for us. So we're going to take a look at that part in just a moment. Before we go, just to show you one more thing, that there is a bunch of REST endpoints that you can access directly, say from the command line using curl or something to that effect. And if you go to the API endpoint and don't give it anything beyond that, you'll get a help document with some samples on how to use the API endpoint directly. But the actual JavaScript application here, which is Initializer, is calling to that API endpoint. And the API endpoint is in turn running .NET new templates and then returning the generated projects back. One other side note about the Initializer is sort of cool, that if you have a sample project with some behavior that you've sort of added to it, you can share that URL, send it to somebody else, or maybe just make a bookmark of it yourself so you can go back as a reference and kind of see what the generated code looks like. So with that, let's switch over to the templates. So how's it? We have a new recently released package called Steeltoe Netcore Tool Templates. And what this allows you to do is use the .NET new command. If you're unfamiliar with that, take a quick peek. This is something when you install your SDK, you can use the .NET new command to generate projects, configuration files, and things of that ilk. And its general sort of format here is a .NET new, and you give it a template name. Someone's on. I got some feedback. Thanks. So to install locally this template, I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to switch over to a command line. Okay, I'm in a empty directory. Go ahead and install. I'm going to cheat a little bit here because we have a newer release that has some additional features. This is not yet available on the public Nugget server. I'll go ahead and install our templates locally. And a new template called Steeltoe-Web API has been added. We can take a look at that and see what kind of things that the template can do for us. I'm just going to scroll up here because there's a lot of help output. So the beginning of this help is just the sort of the standard options that are available to all templates. And if we scroll down farther, these are the options that are available that are specific to the Steeltoe Web API template. And if you're familiar with the web version of the Initializer, these options will look familiar to you. It's how you add, say, MySQL support, this option right here. And further on, there's the distributed tracing and the Docker file we were talking about before. So let's go ahead and create a project using this template. But one thing I want to do is I'm going to give this a name. Call this Acme Widgets. And let's want to add those management endpoints that we had before. Let's go ahead and add some distributed tracing. Let's add that Docker file again. And I think that I want to use maybe an older version of the framework, Netcore app 3.1. Look at the project that got created from here. This is basically the same project that was created when you used the Initializer in the web version a moment ago. And we can go and take a look at some of these files that were generated. So again, here's my CS project file. You can see that there's been a couple of packages that have been added to it. In my program, you can see what the logging has been configured to use a dynamic console. In my startup, again, once again, to see where the actuators and distributed tracing has been set up in the configuration part of the startup, and later on where the endpoints themselves are being mapped. So let's take a look at this Docker file too. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to run this. I'm going to use a Docker file to run my application. I want to add an extra line in here that has that is going to override the endpoint itself. Because I think by default, this is on port, what is that, 5,000 or so, but I'm going to override this into port 80. Let's go ahead and build that Docker file. I'm going to call this Docker image demo. This will probably take about 20, maybe 30 seconds, because when it's running in Docker, the restore is happening all over again, and then there's a compilation step. Then when I'm going to run it, I'm going to go ahead and run it my local as a local Docker container. I'm going to map, say, local port 8080 to the port 80 of the actual container itself, so I can have access to the application. I'm going to open up a new terminal here. And if you're familiar with the Web API application, it has an endpoint called weather forecasts. I have that in my history here. So I'm just going to go ahead and issue a request to there. And there's my weather forecast application. So that is sort of the vanilla Web API. I'm also going to take a look at the actuators that were added as part of our options that we specified. So there's an info endpoint under the actuators, which gives me information about what the application version is, but and also some Steeltoe information as well. And another actuator that's enabled by default is the health, which just gives us up and down status of the app. So this is a sort of the command line version of using the template. But I suspect that many of you probably may not live in the command line. You instead probably live in Visual Studio or another IDE. So let's take a look at what it looks like. The same template looks like in an IDE. Okay. So this may be a bit pokey because this is running in a virtual machine, but it will do the trick. So this Visual Studio 2019, I've already gone ahead and installed the template on this box, and I'm going ahead and select a new project. I happen to know that scrolling down at the bottom will give me access to the template, the Steeltoe Web API template that we installed. This is the same template that we were just using at the command line. I will go ahead and that seems reasonable. I'll put them in the same directory. And why don't we add maybe the same options we had before, just because, just for consistency. So we get Docker file, dynamic logger, and management endpoints. Go ahead and create our project. All right. So again, this is the same. Basically, it's the same project again, but instead of using the command line, now we're using the IDE. And if you maybe an older version of Visual Studio, you may have to enable support for command line for .NET templating. That is under. If you go into options, there's a preview section that you can take a peek at. And there is a section in here. Oh, right, here we go. Show all .NET Core templates in new project dialog. This is enabled by default in recent versions, but you may have to toggle this in order to gain access to these templates such as these. Quick look at the Docker files. It's the same Docker file we were looking at before. And so it also, I do know as well, if you happen to be on OS X and you don't use Visual Studio, that there is support for, Rider has support for these the command line templates as well. So that's that was sort of the initializer / templates in 3 or 4-ish different ways. There's more information available on our the documentation of the Steeltoe IO site. And I think that's it. Jason.
Thanks, Chris. Awesome. Any questions around that for Chris? No? Okay. Sorry about the meeting mix-up. I guess we're in a different room. I didn't know how that's even possible, but it did happen. So we did go over a little bit about the current. Let's see here. Still redo what we kind of did earlier. Let's see. One second here. Get my meeting notes up again. I will share my meeting notes real quick, just in case anybody has any questions or want to add to it. Okay. We already went over this a little bit, but some people were late to the meeting, and I want to go over it one more time. Just a quick update here. We got our announcements around Steeltoe YouTube channel, our 3.1.1 release, our which has already been released. It was last month. Steeltoe 2.5.5 is planned for an upcoming next week, and then we've also removed all .NET Core 2.1 since it's end of life now, so that we no longer support that runtime. And then Hacktoberfest. So we're joining Hacktoberfest. This I guess it starts in like I think two or 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and we're going to be joining that. And so keep an eye out for any Steeltoe tickets that are labeled Hacktoberfest. That's kind of where we left off, and there are some presentations here that we during this last month from Layla and from Hananiel. Definitely check out Hananiel's You Can Be Cloud Native too. And these other 2 talks were also really good around Azure Spring Cloud. Also had some discovery using Eureka and Steeltoe. And then also the Tanzu TV episode, kind of describing our Steeltoe 3.1 release, and gets pretty good details around our Steeltoe messaging and stream work. And that was Dave and Hananiel who took care of that. Is there any other questions, or anyone want to bring up any other topics? No?
I'll give you an update on the book.
Okay.
The short of it is I paused it. The long of it is it was becoming quite a burden on me. They were wanting me to commit to a certain number of pages per week. And I was wanting this to be a more, I guess, laid back, community driven kind of approach. And it just quite frankly became such a burden on me that I had to pause it, because I was just not going to meet the demands that they had, they being the publisher packet. When I paused it about a week ago, they came back and said, let's try to find somebody else. I said, good luck. And I don't know, we just kind of left it open-ended right now. I don't want to stop it at all, but at the same time, I just can't make it a full-time job, writing the book. So anyway, a negative update, but so that's the status of it right now. You can in that Steeltoe book channel, if anybody has any thoughts, or you want to jump in and be a part of it or whatever, just feel free to go in that channel. The publisher is in there, we're in there, everybody's there.
Right. It's sorry to hear that. I saw your post or your email, I guess. But yeah, I told the team, so if they were interested to reach out. And I also mentioned it earlier in the call. So still be nice to have a book around Steeltoe. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess we're quite swamped over here, so I'm not sure it's going to be something that the team takes on.
Well, and that's the challenge is I am there as well for my full-time job, and then I've taken on an opportunity for a side project, and the side project is going to use Steeltoe streams heavily,
Oh,
like
sweet.
really, really heavily. And so I'm in the midst right now I've read all of the documentation for Steeltoe streams. Good Lord, Tillman. Good Lord, man. That documentation made every piece of my brain hurt. But I've read all that, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get started. So we got a little bit of work to do there.
All right, blame it on H, on Neil. It was.
Oh, was that
all-
Hannah
it's all-
Neal that did that? That
Yeah, it's all
documentation?
totally all his fault.
Dude. I
They
did
only did the
not
good parts,
read
right?
the world history of connectors and brokers, and just get it done, man.
I
Are you
think
talking about streams docs?
Yeah.
So, streams is so easy to get started. There's not a getting started guide. You just have developer
Yeah.
documentation.
But
That's my answer to that.
Like,
Because
I read-
there's a 2-line
read-
or a 3-line sample.
I
Sorry,
know,
go
but
ahead.
the problem is, like, if you want to just see streams work, that's good.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for it, but I don't want to see streams work. I want to take it to production. And
Yeah.
all the examples, like in the samples repo, and all of the documentation doesn't go in that direction. That was my challenge. Is like,
Gotcha.
I need to create things that are like, I know that you get a lot of resilience behind the scenes. I get all that, right? But implementing this in my application and doing it, with multiple listeners and many different publishers, because I'm doing an
Gotcha.
event-driven design for an entire product, right? So there's a ton of orchestration to be done here. And that is where I'm like, I have no help here. So I ended up in the source code trying to figure out how to get this to work, just reading the source.
Okay. I guess what I can take away, like adding a sample that uses multiple listeners and multiple sources. Is that what you'd like?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, this is meant for an event type architecture, right? An event driven architecture. So I would say having a single application, maybe not to the point of eShop, maybe not to that degree, but having a realistic application that has many different events being emitted and many things listening for the events, and nothing's connected to one another, that would be tremendously helpful.
Yeah, there is a Spring doc that has a slightly more complex couple of different moving pieces. I don't know how soon you looked at it, but we did add the one document around what is that, usage processing. There's a telephone app with phone data, minutes, and there's like a trivial aggregator and slightly, so that has multiple pieces, moving parts being connected together.
Yeah.
Did you look at that
Yep.
one? You
Yeah,
did?
that helped.
Okay. So you need something more.
That helped, but it's also I'm doing this right now. I'm doing it as console apps. None of these are web. So as console apps, you guys are using to actually get the listener going. You guys are using a web host, but you have the stream, or what is it? The Steeltoe Host? Was that the name of it?
Yeah, Steeltoe Host. It's not a web host, but you can add the web host components in it if you want to.
So
But
that gave me a very nice level of dependency injection. It was very, very nice. But anyway, I'm learning as I go here. Hopefully I can give something back once I kind of wrap my head around what I'm wanting to do and where I could help out in documentation.
Yeah,
One
if you
question-
give me like a couple of 2-liners, how do you X, and I'll see where we can help with that. Because,
Actually, if you'd like, if maybe like next week or something, if you want to get like 45 minutes or something, I'll just share my screen and you can see what I'm doing.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
It's not open source, but I'm happy to show you what I'm doing.
Okay, yeah, it'll help me understand that. what the black, it's kind of the curse of knowledge. First you don't know anything, then you learn it, and then you know, and then you never can look at it from a perspective of someone who hasn't seen it before. So
I understand
that's
that.
my issue. Yeah, if you can help me with that, I'll update the documents.
And David,
One
you want to create
quick
a
question.
you want to create a thing around our samples and see if we can create something that's a little bit more detailed, like maybe what you're asking for, some of the things you've already mentioned, like just kind of like list.
Yeah, actually, if on an and I can look at this thing, maybe out of what I'm doing, I can kind of water it down a little bit or take out the proprietary stuff,
Mhm.
and we can make a sample out of that. Absolutely.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Is there? I haven't even looked, and I'm sorry, I'm just asking. Where is the Kafka broker? Is that possibly going to happen?
Right now it's not pegged for anything until probably our post 3.2 release. So maybe a 4.0.
That's going to be, for me, that's going to be the rub, because all of this is running in Kubernetes, and Kafka's done such a good job of adapting to Kubernetes, and there's so many resources out there, whereas Rabbit, there are, but they just haven't moved the degree that Kafka has. And I'm at this place because I'm looking at Steeltoe streams, and it's like, man, this is dead simple, and I love this, right? With attributes and all that stuff. I love this. I gotta understand it, but I love it. But the problem is I have to use Rabbit with this. The other side of it is I go Kafka, and yeah, I get Kafka and all its goodness, but I have to write my own client. And there's so much to be done there with it. So I'm kind of in this place.
Yeah, I mean, the plan is to go there and have a Kafka binder and configuration with Kafka, but we're not right now. It's on the fence of whether it's going to make it into 3.2 or not.
Okay.
Which is our next, which is what we just planned. We just planned our 3.2 release, so we're trying to keep it kind of lean so we can jump onto the 4.0, which would be our next major release, and kind of focus around more of Kubernetes and some of these other areas that we're working on. So
Okay.
we'll see if again, it's like right on the fence. It's one of those ones that we'd like to do, and we're still in discussions about it, basically.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
good. That's good feedback, David.
It is,
from priority being Kafka. So
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear from the outside when you read the documentation and you just generally go into the world and look at, I want to do Rabbit in a cluster, and I want to do Kafka in a cluster. It's just really, really weighed towards Kafka. There's a ton of stuff out there for getting started. And it's not just a Helm chart, right? There's so much more that they give you, and so much more the community has developed. And Rabbit is like, it's just not there. It's just a Helm chart, and it's a bunch of features for a Helm chart, and I appreciate that, but like, I need more than that. So
Okay, yeah, that's good feedback, definitely.
cool.
I mean, yeah, we'd like to get we've always wanted the Kafka binder next, so that's kind of what we've been holding on to, but there's a lot in 3.2 already, so we need to figure out how we can get that all that done.
No, I mean, I really can only imagine the work to write one of these binders. So I definitely don't take that lightly.
Yeah, well, now that we have a Rabbit one, we can follow the same paradigm. It shouldn't be as difficult in theory. I don't know if Hananiel agrees with me or not, but
Yeah, I kind of did a quick look at what it would take. There's two kind of API. Kafka supports the streams and the regular one. And for the regular one, my estimate is, I would have said like a month, but I think it's probably going to take a little bit longer than that of working at it. There's a few things. There's quite a bit of code, but the big thing was Dave Tillman did a tremendous amount of work to make these high-level the binder abstraction available, and from there the implementation is like a trivial piece of the whole thing of all the pieces that are there. So yeah, but it'll still take some time. It's not a 2-week thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll take what you said into consideration, because we're right. It's like right on the cutting floor right now. So we'll see if it's going to make it or not.
I mean, personally, and I mean, this is not, this doesn't affect your all's direction at all, but personally, I'm making the choice of, I would rather have simplistic code and not have to write an entire client and just deal with Rabbit, and hope one day that a Kafka binder will come out and I can very easily switch over to that, because I've written towards that abstraction. So that's the direction I'm taking right now.
I mean, that is one of the features of it, right? Where you can switch around a little bit, right, Dave? Isn't that you can kind of plug in? Or
Yeah, just through simple configuration and so forth, and it just works. So
yeah. All right.
I'm going to hold you to that, Tillman. It just works.
HAW.
All right. Anything else, David? Or
Nope.
anybody else? Or any questions for Chris on his feedback stuff? Thanks for doing that, Chris.
Sure.
All right, excellent. Well, that's all we had today. Is there anything else on this list here? I did put the action items around deeper dive application with Steeltoe streams, and also mentioned the Kafka binder priority. So we'll take that back to the drawing board and see what we can do there, if we can make it happen or not.
Cool.
All right, yeah, that's all I have. Anyone else have anything? Good. Thanks for joining, and sorry about the meeting mix-up. We'll try to figure out what's going on there. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.
Bye.
Yep.
See you guys.